What's up, guys? Now in this video I am going to talk about the 5 most important things you should consider when choosing a GIS software or platform for your next GIS project. I know there are so many GIS software out there that you can use, but before going ahead to choose that specific one, you will need to consider these 5 things. And that's the focus of the video. Point number 1. What's the scope of the project? So, scope, I'm talking about whether your project is focusing on collecting data, whether you are producing maps. If you are producing maps, what type of maps are you producing? Are they paper maps? Are they web maps? Are they maps that you want your users to be able to use on specific devices? If you are producing just maps, then you may be looking at running some specific analysis. Now, there are different GIS software out there that gives you the opportunity to do specific GIS analysis. Some of them go beyond very simple analysis, like overlay, to very complex analysis such as network analysis and a whole lot. It's your project focused on building applications. Maybe your users do not require paper maps, but maybe your users are let's say people who are looking at buying stuff, searching for specific places, POIs, points of interest, and so you want your output to be a sort of an application that they can have on their devices and then use. Now, you should note that different GIS platform gives you that unique opportunity to do that, and they range in their capabilities. Some of them offers certain APIs, APIs that the developers can use to build on top of these GIS applications. So if your project is looking at building these custom mapping applications, then you could use that. You could look at a GIS platform that allows you to do that. But if your project is just focused on doing data collection, producing maybe some very simple maps, then you could just end there with something very simple. Now, the next thing that you want to consider, point number 2, is the cost or budget. Your project, are you doing an academic research? It's your project, profit focused, or is it non-profit? Now, if your project is in any of these categories, then you may want to consider when choosing a specific application. If your project is an academic research or non-profit, you wouldn't want to go for a paid or a proprietary GIS application, unless of course you still want to fund, or you have a way of funding your project. Are you receiving funding? Are you receiving funding maybe from a donor organization to conduct this GIS project or a GIS research? So if you are receiving funds, does your donors do your donors have a specific requirement as to what GIS applications that GIS software or platform that you should use? I've seen projects where the donors would require those that are undertaking the project to use certain platforms or software. Maybe it could be as a result of maybe they having some links with them, or they probably have considered that already in their budget. Now, point number 3, the third thing that you want to consider when choosing a GIS software or platform for your project is the level of expertise of your team members. You could be doing this project alone, especially if it's an academic research or maybe a non-profit kind of thing. But for very big GIS projects, you may be working with a team. So if you are working with a team, do your team members have core GIS knowledge at all? If they have, what is that the level? So if your team members have a background in GIS or the core GIS, then it may not be so difficult choosing any GIS software and then using. Probably they may need just a little bit of training. But if your team members do not have any GIS background or GIS knowledge, then you have to be careful when choosing a GIS software. You don't want to go for one that it's kind of complicated to use. If not, then it won't be of any benefit. Maybe the software may be free, but it may be difficult to pick up and then use for people who are just beginners. So you have to also consider that. Now, the fourth point that I want to talk about is existing GIS platform. So of course, your team members might have used some GIS platform before, whether it's proprietary, whether it's open source. So what are the software that they use? So you may be looking at working with about 5 to 10 team members or even more for very large projects. Now, if most of them or all of them have used some GIS software before, what are the software that they use, and which one should you pick? Should you go in for one that has been used by the majority of the team members or not? So you need to note that. Now, the last and final point that I want to talk about is the data requirements and then input. Now, this is a very important point. Now, some GIS software that I've come across may offer you some data that you can use in your project. So these data may be base maps. These data may be data from specific organizations or some contributors, which is only licensed to people who have license or access to the software. There are also some free GIS platform or software that may give you some bit of data or information which you can use, but they may not be that much. So if you are going in for a platform that, let's say, it's free, then you will not have so much information or access to so much data, unless from those that may be from contributors. Now, another thing that you should note under the data requirements and input is the level of collaboration for the data. So where do you want to host the data? Is it going to be on your server? Is it going to be in the general cloud? Who do you want to have access to the data, and what can they use the data for? Most proprietary or paid GIS platform come with that additional functionalities where you have people who can control those who have access to the data or do not have access to the data, and at what level and what can they use it for. But if you are dealing with, let's say, an open source one, then you may need to set up an additional platform connected where you host your data, and then create your own rules or access or regulations to the data. So guys, thank you for being part and watching this video, and I know you have learned a lot, and hopefully you can now choose a specific platform for your GIS project. So now that we've talked about software, in our next videos we are going to choose specific software, and then I'll introduce you to them, both open source and proprietary. So you will want to consider watching my next video. Thank you.